We'll start with an official welcome to everybody here to our second session of week 1. Looks like we've got a pretty good group in the classroom, and everybody is ready to continue where we left off on Tuesday. So yeah, let's just get started. Right, so today's agenda looks as follows. I'll talk a little bit about the announcements, making sure that you guys catch the announcements. We'll talk a little bit about the discussion and how it's going and our daily checkpoints. And then we'll move on rather quickly to the assignment. We have, as I promised, we're going to do a demonstration for the presentation and what I'm expecting there. And kind of wrap up a little bit of what we talked about on Tuesday. Hopefully we'll make it a little bit more concrete to people. And then I'll do a bit of a walkthrough for the assessment. We'll have any Q&A, depending on what the time is. And I will talk to you guys about the appointment calendar. All right, does that sound like a good plan? All right. First of all, I know that, you know, maybe some of you were left a little bit, feeling a little bit lost after Tuesday's lecture on, you know, what to do next and how to handle the assignment. The assignment is not as specific as you might have had in the past. Like I mentioned, this 200 level class here, we're kind of trying to start stretching your own design legs and making you guys kind of think and work on your own quite a bit. So it might have been a little bit new to you, a little bit uncomfortable to you, but we're gonna wrap things up here. And know that in the future, on Tuesdays, I'll be able to have more time on Tuesdays to go through the assignments a little bit more. It's just this first week when we have all of the, you know, kind of housekeeping things to go through, then sometimes the Tuesday lecture gets a little cramped. But in the future, I'll be going through the assignment in more detail, all of it on Tuesday, and then we'll have more time for that. So hopefully that will help everybody out. Okay, so first of all then, let's see here. I want to open up our classroom as well so we can jump over to it. And I've learned my lesson from last week, so I'm gonna only share my screen here. If I can get back my Zoom tools. Come on, there they are. I'm going to share this desktop instead so I don't accidentally not show you what I'm talking about. All right, so for the announcements and review, and this is something that you can kind of plan on me doing pretty much every time we start a lecture. I might talk a little bit about anything that's been posted since last time. And also on Thursdays, we'll review the discussion a little bit. And I was thinking, because we talked on Tuesday about how important the information is in the daily checkpoints, we can have, you know, maybe just a couple of minutes real quick of sharing time where you guys can share anything that you found interesting in the daily checkpoints up until Thursday. And if there's, you know, anything that we can discuss that those checkpoints covered. So first of all, then let's take a look at the announcements. So I put the recording link in the home page, so they go right over here. You can get to it from the home page under the live sessions. So they're right down here. So here's the recorded link from Tuesday, right? And then in the announcement, I also attached a PDF of the slides. So right here if you want to download the slides and have those to kind of guide you a little bit or help you review something. There they are. And then I also posted the policies and expectations, like I mentioned, so that PDF is there. There was a soft skill seminar today. Let me see what time that was. So right now. So I guess maybe some of our students are in there. It kind of got double booked there. And this announcement specifically, I want to make sure that all of you read. So I'm going to go over it in class too. So we're going to have class critiques, like I mentioned, once in a while. In the course, we won't have any this week because nobody has worked on anything yet, but you know, maybe starting next week. And personally, I believe that critiques are a very valuable learning tool. I think there's nothing that helps you understand more principles and things that we talk about than seeing visual examples. And so we're going to use critiques partially as our teaching tools in this class. Work in class. Some of the feedback you're just going to be getting in your grades instead. And sometimes I might refer you to the critique and say, you know, watch the critique to find out more about this or that. So when I do the critiques, I will go in and select a few projects that either illustrate certain issues, strengths or weaknesses, whatever it is that I need to point out and talk about. And those is what I'll use in the critique. Now, I don't use any names in my critiques. They're completely anonymous. And hopefully your name isn't on the artwork somewhere, because that's hard for me to do. I could probably cover it up with something. But I don't show the name of the file or whoever has created it. That's really irrelevant. It doesn't matter who it is that created it, because we're looking at them as teaching examples. And so we're pointing out certain details or issues and things like that. So, you know, who created it doesn't really matter. And I try to approach it in that way, as a learning experience in a positive, constructive way, so that I hope you won't feel like it's threatening or environment or something that personally attacks anyone. So with that in mind, if you still don't want me to use your work in class and show it to the rest of the group, the rest of the people that are watching the lecture, then you need to let me know specifically. So send me a message, tell me that you don't want me to use any of your work in class, and then I will make sure to kind of take you off the list of any projects that I'm showing. All right, does that make sense? Okay, do you guys feel comfortable with that arrangement? Okay, good. Okay, so that taken care of. Let's talk a little bit about the discussion. There's some interesting things going on in the discussions. I'm enjoying hearing your opinions on that. What do you guys think? What do you think it's the overwhelming pros and cons of templates? Do you think more people are for or against them, or is it pretty even? Pretty even, yeah. Yeah, I think so too. There's definitely pros and cons that are to be considered with using templates, but there are certainly instances where there can be used, and other times where it's probably not the best solution. And Lori found a lot of cons. Okay, all right. So, and it probably depends on the situation and maybe, you know, your abilities and capabilities as a designer as well. And see, Brittany found more pros. So yeah, so there is, but I think it's been a good topic to investigate, don't you think? And I just put another post on there talking a little bit about, I mentioned in the beginning, you know, whether you see templates as a threat to, you know, the livelihood of designers. And so I kind of delved into that a little bit more, and I put up actually a pretty long post, so sorry for that, but I kind of got thinking about a lot of ideas. And so that one's in there if you guys want to, you know, take a look at my thoughts on that subject, and then, you know, let me know what you think about that as well. Yeah, very interesting. And in the assessment this week, you guys are going to get to do some hands-on testing of some of these templates to really see what you think of them and how they function. So some of you might have already, you know, dug into that, but I'll go over that more when we talk about the assessment. Okay, let's continue. All right. So assignment 1, finding the story and the data. So this is a little recap of what we talked about last lecture. So the assignment this week is actually a 2-week project. This week, you're just doing your strategy plan. You're just going to plan the design. You don't have to do any of the actual design work yet. So you're going to go to the website, check out all of the statistics, and find the story that you feel is interesting in that statistics. You're going to plan your visuals. You don't need to do any actual graphs yet. And then you're going to present your plan. And then next week, you're going to design the graphic. So the steps that we talked about on Tuesday, if you guys have gotten started, is to analyze the data, make sure you pinpoint your message, plan your strategy, then outline your strategy, and then present it. So I don't know how many of you have already started on this and started making plans, but if you haven't, don't skip these steps. You know, still, I'm gonna, in my little demo, I have already gone through some of these steps and started planning it. And so if you haven't yet, you still have to do that part before you can put it together in a presentation, which is what I'm going to show you today. Okay. So how do you guys, is there anybody who started on this? Terry has some ideas on paper. Okay. Did you guys go and check out the statistics a little bit more and try to make sense of them? Okay, Lori's already started to put some stuff together in design. Okay, cool. And it's totally all right. Everybody can be at a different phase of the project right now. You know, you still have till Saturday to pull it together. And I would say this is one of those projects where, you know, you've heard before that 80% of the work is the research and 20% is the actual design, right? You guys have heard that kind of thing before? Okay, yeah. And that's definitely what this project is teaching you, is that, you know, this is the research and planning process. If it takes 80% of your time, that's perfectly all right. The rest, the 20, it's all going to come together as long as you have gathered some information, made some different consideration, and, you know, trying to make a plan. Okay, Ravens is still drawing blanks, and that's okay. Maybe when I show some of the things that I'm doing, it will start to trigger some ideas for you. So, all right, cool. And, you know, as always, if you feel lost of ideas, just search for some inspiration, you know, try to, maybe some of the templates that you'll be looking for in the assessment will help you as well. All right, so let's see where to go from here then. So planning your design. So before, we talked a lot on Tuesday about finding the story and the data. And so if you haven't watched, if you weren't there on Tuesday and you haven't watched that lecture yet, be sure you watch it, because I go through the website, I look at the website, and we kind of look at that data and try to analyze and kind of think about, what does that data really mean, right? And we were a little bit surprised at some of the facts that were there, but then when we looked a little deeper, it started making sense. Is that right? Do you guys remember some of the things we talked about there? Yeah. All right. Like, for example, do you guys remember where was the biggest usage population in the world, internet usage population in the world? It was Asia, right? And okay, and we were a little bit surprised. But then when we figured out that half of the world's population actually live in Asia, then it made more sense, right? Okay, so we're going to continue with analyzing that data and now kind of starting to put it into our own plan and our own story. So as you're planning your design, these are the different things that you need to present. A synopsis of your story, so kind of what you gleaned from that data that we were talking about and what you want to bring out to the forefront. Some kind of visual plan or sketch of what you kind of want the design to look like, and that can change. So just a starting point, that's fine. Think about hierarchy, imagery, text, all of those kinds of things. You might want to make a list of graphs or somehow indicate what type of graphs that you're going to use. Start planning a color palette. And then there is that ProQuest reference part too that you need to do. Find an article in ProQuest and reference that deals with how to analyze data. All right, so some of the aids and tools that you can use that I'm also going to show you here when I'm doing my demo is Word. You can type things into Word if you want to start with that and then import that into InDesign. You can use images of hand sketches. You can download free vectors or images to use. You can think of the space and the shape for your graphs, but you don't have to create any graphs yet. That's what we're going to do next week. We're going to talk about the Illustrator graphing tool, and you'll find out some cool ways to create graphs. Remember to use some of the other helps and tools that you might have been exposed to in other classes, and otherwise I'll show you about them here. But Adobe Color CC or Cooler, you guys have used that before, right, in other classes? So this is a good opportunity to practice using that again to get a color palette. And also, how many of you have used the Type Kit to pick and select fonts from? Okay, so yeah. Okay, if you haven't, I'll show you. It's very quick and easy to access with your Creative Cloud, but that's going to be, you know, a good tool that you can use right here. Okay, great. So, and there at the bottom, I just kind of put down a little food for thought that you can use the templates that you've seen in your discussion research and that you're doing in the, you know, that you're working with in the assessment as an inspiration as well. So if you feel lost, that can help you also. But again, that's just in your planning and thought process and all of that kind of stuff. All right, so let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to demonstrate to you guys a fabricated example, my example of this, so to speak. But I want you to know this for sure. You're going to create your own plan for your own design. There is no really right or wrong as long as you include these different parts of it in one form or another. You don't have to include it exactly in the form that I have done, but you need to kind of have started this much of a plan in some form or another. So don't feel like this demonstration is something that you have to follow exactly, all right? So Lori, okay, if you don't want to use facing pages, that's fine as well. This is just my recommendation and probably what I'm going to do, and I'll kind of walk you through it and explain it, and if you can go in and change settings if you want to do that later. So don't feel too stressed about this. Again, this is a plan, this is a sketch, it's very loose. but you still want it to look somewhat professional and organized so that when I look through it, I can get a picture of your plan and it doesn't look too erratic, okay? So we do want you to use InDesign, again, because this is another way, time to practice using InDesign as a good layout program. I suggest two-facing pages or a landscape format, just because it fits well on the screen. And as I'm going to be looking at them on the screen, it helps me so I don't have to like scroll up and down to see what you have on there and that kind of stuff. So, all right, so you're more stressed about the assessment. Yeah, and that's a little bit of an exploration exercise as well. So I don't think you need to be too stressed about any of the assignments this week. They're pretty loose. It's mostly just you guys testing things out, making a strategy, planning things, okay? So we'll get to that though, Brittany, so hold on. In our second half of the lecture, we'll go in and look at those templates and stuff, okay? All right, so just be sure that you include some of the specified components that are in there in the class list. And so how you do that, it's up to you. But these are the things that I suggest you consider. The principles of design when you're laying things out, again, so that it's clear and understandable. Think about the rules of composition. And remember to keep things simple. This is the time to communicate, not a time to decorate. Okay, this is just showing your plan, kind of a little bit like a mood board. You guys have created mood boards in other classes before? Yeah, so this is a little bit similar to a mood board, okay? All right, and have a bit of a professional approach. So that's why I'm saying keep it simple and clear so that it's easy to understand, so that it's something that, you know, think about it as, you know, again, I'm your client, right? We talked about that Tuesday, that you should look at me as your client. So if you're proposing a plan to a client, you know, how would you show that to me as your client? So that's why it needs to, you know, have a professional approach. And then make sure you keep the InDesign file, because you'll have some resources on there that you want to maybe access later. Save it as a PDF, name it as specified, and then submit that for week 1. And the rubric will have a breakdown of the things that you're going to be scored on. So we'll take a look at that after I start working on my design here. All right, so I'm going to scoot that slide out of the way here for a minute. And let's go to the assignment itself. All right, and you know, these were the things we talked about on Tuesday, how to get the story together, and you know, how it matters what type of chart you're using, all of that kind of stuff. And then we went to the website. So I'm going to open that up again. We went to the website and we talked about, you know, kind of looking at this graph. It looks like, you know, half of the world's population is in Asia that are using internet. But then when we started looking down here, we realized, you know, again, that it's just because so many people live in Asia. But it's actually only 44% of the population in Asia that are using the internet. And so these graphs kind of showed that as well. But if you look at, you know, this graph up here, this table of information, and then these graphs here too, you know, with the world average in there, which is kind of interesting to have. And then, you know, this graph right here, it's just kind of boring, right? You still have to kind of wrap your head around this data and figure out and kind of compare, oh, well, this percentage here, what does this mean? Penetration rates. Okay, so North America has a great penetration rate, but there are not very many people. So even though it's in a graph form and can kind of help us see that, oh, Asia has a lot more users than the Middle East, for example, it still doesn't really tell the whole story very comfortably or easily, right? You still have to kind of go back and forth and kind of compare things. And, you know, just looking at this website just all at once. It's not like it's telling me an easy story to understand. You see? Do you kind of get that? Yeah, okay. So it's still kind of just boring and statistic looking, right? So what we're going to try to do is make this into an infographic, which is more entertaining to look at, where the information is more digestible, where we kind of get the idea right away. So what's going to be the idea? Well, what I did is I just actually opened up a Word document and started typing down my thoughts on this as we had discussed it in class. So let me see here. I think I saved it all in a good little spot here. I'm trying to keep myself organized. I have week 1 and I have my resources. So here's my plan. So I just put down in Word, you know, the topic is the worldwide internet use, and I was kind of wanting to focus on the growth. And so some of the stuff that I gleaned out of the statistics was that over half of the internet users in the world live in Asia, right? But also that Asia holds over half of the world's population. So Africa has seen the biggest growth in internet usage over the past 7 years by far, right? So I looked back here and we looked at that where it said Africa's growth was 7,000%. So that was a lot more than any of the other countries right there. Middle East followed, and then Latin America, okay? So I put that down in some of the information that I wanted to kind of tell in my story. And then also North America has the greatest penetration of internet users per capita, followed by Europe, because that kind of makes sense. That's kind of what we all expected, that North America had the greatest penetration. In other words, the most internet users per capita, per population, than Asia or Africa. All right, so, and then I just put down in a little paragraph my plan. I wanted to focus on the internet growth in the last 7 years by showing the growth in Africa, Middle East, and Latin America compared to the rest. And then I'm going to use the other info to balance the story to show that Africa still only has roughly 1/4 of its population using the internet, and the Middle East and Latin America have about half. So that kind of still kind of balances out the information and gives a more complete picture of internet usage across the world. And, you know, breaking things down like this, and instead of putting, you know, let's see here, the penetration, you know, putting 26.9% and 56.5 and 59.4, you know, when I put it into kind of break it down into a little bit more easily digestible numbers, like 1/4 of the population or 1/2 of the population, that feels a little easier to kind of picture and get in your mind than all of these numbers and percentages and that kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of what you're doing when you are extracting the story. Just kind of make it make sense to you. So when you write this part down, you have to make sure that it makes sense to you. You can't just copy and paste numbers and data over, because if it doesn't make sense to you, you're not going to be able to illustrate it in a way that makes sense. Does that make sense? All right, there's a question mark. Tell me your question. Okay, no, you were all right. Okay, good. Okay, all right. So I just put this, you know, like I said, in a Word document, and I don't have to, you know, completely finish it. That's what I'm going to do in the process as I'm thinking about it over the weekend and as I'm starting to work on it next week. Okay, so this is just my plan. Written down with some verbiage and just kind of taking the information from that data. All right, so let's see. All right, so then the next thing that we talked about here, maybe I'll move this over here so we can still see it. So that's my synopsis or my story, right? So I just did that in a Word document. Then we also want some kind of visual plan or sketch. So I'm starting to think then, okay, so how am I going to put this down in an infographic? How am I going to show this in a poster? If I was trying to show it to middle school students, just wanted them to kind of get this idea. Then, so I started, so I just basically, I'll even show you here what I did. And it took me a couple of turns. I did a few different ones. But I just sketched on a piece of paper with a Sharpie. You know, I did this one. I did a couple more that I actually threw away in the other room. But, you know, it took me 3 or 4 turns until I found out, you know, like, I think this would work. Kind of for my plan, my sketch, how to lay things out. And so I just laid it down. I took a picture of it on my phone. And then that's what I'm going to use as my visual plan or my sketch. Okay. So I've got that. Over here, let's start opening up in design now so I can start putting all these things together. All right, so I'm going to start a new document, and here is where, you know, either you can do facing pages, or you can do just 1 page and have it landscape, or 2 pages, however much room you need. One little trick though is if you're doing just 2 portrait pages and you don't want them to be, you know, you want them to be facing pages right next to each other, and you don't want to have that odd little cover page always there. If you put it to start on page 2, then you'll have that spread opening up. And if we open up our pages right here, you'll see you don't have that annoying first page just sitting out by itself. So, but again, that's up to your preference, just however you feel comfortable doing it. And, you know, always take a look at your PDF after you save it to make sure that it's saving the way that you planned on it saving. So, all right, so I'm just going to put a text box in here, and I'll keep within the margin still because I want it to be clean, right, and look professional. So I'll go back to my Word document, and I'll just copy this stuff here. Okay. And go back to InDesign, and I'll just paste it in here. And it's pasting in Minion Pro, which is one of my least favorite fonts. So just because, you know, my OCD, I'm changing it to Avenir, but that you can use Minion. That's not going to get you any deductions or anything. I just need to look at things the way I want to look at things. Okay, so I just kind of have a heading in here. This can actually bump over however you want to do it. I have my bullets here. I have my little paragraph in my plan. So here's my written down story plan. And then I'm going to put my little image in here. So kind of just planning my layout a little bit. I'll just make a box right here, and I will place the picture that I took of my little sketch. You guys like my world map there? Can you guys kind of tell what it's all about? I'm going to make sure that it fits inside of my box without stretching it, right? So I want to fit fill the frame proportionately, right? I don't want to fit, I can also fit the frame to the content. I don't want to fit the content to the frame because that's going to stretch it. And so we'll do that. Okay. Looks like a dinner, looks like a TV dinner here almost, right? So basically, let me explain my graphic to you here. Let's zoom in a little bit. So this is my plan here. I just put headline because I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to call it yet. this is a little bit of an introduction paragraph. It's probably not going to be this exact text. It's going to be written a little bit more, you know, not in I form. It's going to say, you know, something about that, you know, Africa has had the greatest growth of internet usage in the last 7 years. Or, so a little bit more factual than my own paragraph right there. And then I was thinking I'd have a world map right here with some different circles showing, you know, some of these growth percentages for each one of the areas. So this would be North America, South Latin America, Africa, Australia, and I guess there should have been another one here for Europe, and then Asia, right? So, so that was kind of my plan right here. Then I thought, well, it'd be good to show that world population kind of as a reference as well. So maybe I'll have a pie graph there that shows the world population. And here, this is going to be my growth chart. And these will be some of the other comparisons. So, but I want this to be bigger because that's really the information that I want to emphasize and the story that I want to tell. And these are just kind of here as kind of backup information. So, and I thought I'd make this the biggest because it's the most interesting to look at. And you can quickly, you know, if I put big numbers in here, then you can quickly like get an idea of what I'm trying to tell, right? So, okay, so does that make sense then to you? Just whatever kind of sketch and plan that you have, but think it through, think it through.
So my understanding is that this little plan that we're making is basically like, we're just showing like bits and pieces of what the final is possibly gonna look like.
Yeah, yep, so this is just my sketch for what the final is gonna look like. And if when I start creating my final next week, if I decide that this is not really going to work, I'm going to make some changes, that's totally okay. You know, this is just, you know, your preliminary plan so that you have at least started thinking about it. If you end up making changes, of course, I'm going to have to make one for Europe because I didn't think about that there, you know. So again, it's just preliminary. Okay? Good with that, everyone? Oh, my goodness. Okay, so let's see what else was on my list. Okay, so hierarchy, imagery, text, that's kind of part of my plan there, right? So, so I have a bit of hierarchy here with whatever is larger, what's smaller, where I'm gonna have text, that kind of stuff. If you don't do a sketch like this, if you do some other type of plan, then you might wanna, you know, kind of indicate what's gonna be your hierarchy, what you're going to show off the biggest, and you know, how you feel that that's going to be working out. But I think a sketch is the easiest way to show that. So what kind of graphs? So if your sketch doesn't have that as part of it, or if you're not doing a hand-drawn sketch, maybe you're just you know, kind of doing a little bit more of a composition draft that just has some squares or something. You know, think about the graphs, what type of graphs you're going to use. Here my sketch kind of covers that part because I'm going to use a pie graph for my population. I'm going to use bar graphs for the growth. So I figured that out. I planned that out. Okay, so color palette. All right. Oh, imagery too. Yeah, exactly. Let me go back to that actually, because I was thinking here of having a world map. So I don't want to have to do too much work later on. And again, you know, you could write a little paragraph and say, I'm going to find imagery on the internet. You could have some different options, something like that, kind of like you would on a mood board. But if you want to be a little bit more zeroed in on that, you can start looking for imagery already. And I just kind of, in my mind, had pictured a vector map that just, you know, where I could add some design things to it. You know, I wanted to have those bubbles, that kind of stuff. So I just kind of did a bit of a search to get free, editable world map vector graphics. So I have all of those words in there. And I found a few places that have some. I think this is where I ended up getting mine from. They had, these are sponsored by Shutterstock, and these you have to have a subscription to use, but there's quite a few free ones here. And let's see, I actually picked this one and downloaded it. And it says that it's editable, so I don't really like the polka dots, but I was hoping that I would be able to take those off. And so, so I did download that one, and it came in a zip folder right here. It's number 35. I opened up my zip folder, and here is the graphic, and it's in an EPS format. And so that means I can open it up in Illustrator. So I open it with Illustrator, and here I go. Okay, so I can actually go in here and I can, let's see what's happening here. So that was the background image. Everything else was white, as you can see, so that's why I don't see anything anymore. So I'm just going to put a new box on here and pick a color. I think kind of a blue always reminds me of the internet. I don't know why. So I'll just change it to blue, and I'll move that. Oh, how to select it. I'll send it to the back, and now you can see that all of the other stuff is on here, and it's editable enough that I can either take that off, can take this sample text off, or I can add something else to it. I might want to keep this little credit here just to be fair, but I'm moving it over there. I can even make it smaller if I want to. All right, so here I have a map that I can use for my graphic. So I'll just group this together, make sure that it sticks together, copy it, and put it in my plan for now. And I just copy it and paste. You can do that with vector graphics. If you have an image instead or something, you just place it in here as an image. So here's my imagery, my vector graphic that I'm planning on using. So that's all together there, kind of helping me out. And then I was going to plan on a color palette, right? So you guys have all used Cooler. Do you guys like using Cooler?
I use it for most of my assignments because it helps a lot when you don't know what colors to use.
Yeah, and it's fun. You can kind of test out different combinations and things like that, right? So let me just double check the chat here so I haven't missed anything. Yeah, you're kind of making a mood board for inspiration for the project, but it has a little bit more factual substance than a mood board would have, right? Because this is probably the most important part of your plan, is that you have pulled out that story. Because if you haven't pulled out that story and decided what it is that you're going to make your infographic about, then it's just going to be scattered information again. And it's not going to be much better than the website that we looked at, right? Okay. Let's see. Can you do any mood board like games, Slick, anything? I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Thomas. And then Raven is wondering, how do you do a mood board in web design and development? Okay, you're in web design and you guys haven't done mood boards yet? Okay.
No.
Okay, so and Thomas, you're talking about games? mood boards is kind of, a mood board is just mostly just a compilation of inspiration, basically, or parts and pieces of giving you direction on what you want a project to be like. So for those of you that are in web design, you might not have done these before, but since I'm kind of showing you how it's put together, hopefully you can find it useful and helpful even for your types of projects. Yeah, you can do a mood board on pretty much anything. But again, this one is, you know, kind of a mood board slash strategy plan. So it needs to be a little bit more specific than just an inspiration board. Okay. And we do want you to put it together in InDesign as an InDesign practice. Okay. So I know that there's online services where you can put together mood boards and inspiration and that kind of stuff. Don't use those for this. Use put it together in InDesign like I'm telling you. Okay. All right. So we're at the color palette, right? So let's go to Adobe Color. And if you're logged in, you can even create a let's see here. A theme or a library. If you want to, you can create a library for this project specifically. Here was one of the color palettes that I played with before. You know, there's different ways to do that. If you find it complicated to import a library or colors, then you can actually just take the CMYK values right here and plug them in. Or you can take a screenshot and you can color sample it. It's many ways. There's many ways to get these colors from Cooler over into your project. But I think the easiest one is just to save it and then pull it up in InDesign. So you can choose here in Cooler any of the types of color rules or schemes that you want to do. I think I'm going to work with a triad because I think it gives me quite a bit of variety and some contrast. And let's see, I'm just going to spin this wheel a little bit here until I find something that looks kind of interesting and appealing to me. And I'm thinking about that I'm going to emphasize Africa. And so I want to think about a color that to me represents Africa quite a bit. And maybe those oranges and reds kind of do. And then this one, this is a pretty good one too. And then it has some complementary greens and a blue over there. So let's just, for time's sake, say that I'm gonna save this one. And then I'm gonna call it option 2 here, since I already had another one. And right here, if you have a library already created, new library, then it should show up right here for you. So I can pick it in here and then click save. And then I'll go back to my InDesign. But also if you're in Cooler, actually, let's go back. Let's go back here to the beginning. Remember that if you don't want to do your own, not that far in the beginning, if you don't want to go that far as to pick your own, you can always explore different themes as well. I guess not, because they're having some issues connecting to the server. But if you click explore and you don't have issues with the server, then a bunch of themes will pop up and you can feel free to use some of those. I have some of my themes that I've saved from previous assignments. So if you've, you know, if you're one of those that have been in here playing before and saved some cool themes that you like, then they will be in there as well. All right, so starting a new library, you can do by clicking the CC libraries and then go into here and saying create new library, and then you can create one that's for this project. Okay, so I'm gonna refresh. You can refresh by clicking that little thing, and then you can see I have my option 2 right there. So let me move that out of the way here. And then I'm going to put these on the plan here. So let me make a few little boxes. And I'm going to hold down Shift because that gives me an absolute square. And I think that looks nice. And, or you can do circles if you want to, whatever you want to do. But, you know, in the mode of being professional, I'm going to make sure they're all the same size and that they're lined up nicely. Okay, so I can either do that holding down my Shift tool when I copy it, or I can, of course, go to my alignment panel, which is under in Design, Object and Layout. So if I open up that alignment thing, I can make sure they're all aligned to the top, and I can make sure they're distributed evenly as well here by the center. So now they're all evenly, nice and clean, the way I like it. Okay, let's make sure I don't miss any comments here. Yeah, there is often trouble syncing the libraries. Okay, so if this library option is giving you problems, that's what I was saying. There are some different ways for you to move those colors in Cooler over to your document. So do you want me to show you some tricks? Okay, all right. Let's see here. Where is my thing? It's not even saved here now. Oh, it's down here. Okay, so here, for example, so let me pull this up. So after you save it, it comes up big like this, right? And it should, or doesn't it? Maybe it doesn't after you have saved it. Oh, info, okay. Hover over it and look at info. Nope, that wasn't the kind of info I wanted. Hold on again, let's go back. Let's do edit, okay. See those have little sliders on there, okay. So if I go back here, now I'm back to where my wheel is. And if you hover over each one of these, it will give you some CMYK values right here. So this one has 33, 0, 86, 63. So you can copy those numbers, which is gonna make it so that you actually have to remember numbers, which is very difficult for me to do. But let's see here. Let's open up our, we want some swatches. And you can do a new swatch, and in this new swatch, put in the numbers right here. So what were they again? 30, 0, 86, 63. Help me remember that. 30, 0. What was it again? I know the last one was 63. And then what was it in 86? Thank you. Okay, 86. Okay, so that's that green color, right? So then I do okay. That gives me that green color. It says black copy now for some reason, just because I kind of made it customary, but I should be able to, oh, it's on the stroke. Okay, so there we go. So now I have that color in there still because I did the CMYK values. Another way that you can do it that's not quite as accurate is that you can go, to your color right here and do a screenshot. So Shift Command 4 gives me this little crosshair, and I just drag it across to get my screenshot. And then, and this is a way that you can do it too, actually. Then the screenshot's usually saved on my desktop. So where's it at? There it is. Open up InDesign, take my screenshot, put it in here, and then I can color pick from here. You could show your color palette just as a screenshot if you wanted to, but then, you know, sooner or later you're going to need to have these be actual color swatches in your library, right? So here, I want to fit that so that it fits in there so we can see them all. But if you wanted to use it from here, you can select your shape, go to your eyedropper and click it again. So now it's doing the frame again, and click each one of the colors here. Come on. So you have to refresh the eyedropper. All right. Or if you're able to get it in from the library, you can select the colors from here. So I use the blue, the green. Now time for that brown color and my kind of orangey red. You can see that they're not exactly, you know, the screenshot sometimes is a little bit brighter than what the colors come out into the sampler right there. All right, does that help anyone? Okay, yep. Just remember that the screenshot is not going to be quite as accurate as if you get the exact CMYK values. All right, so that's just little, you know, I think because we have to deal with technology and sometimes it doesn't cooperate with us, I think, you know, most of us that have been in the industry for a while, we just develop our own little tricks and ideas to, you know, get in the back door and make it work for you. Again, it's a problem-solving job, right? So it's the kind of things that we do. If it won't work for me one way, I'll figure out another way for it to work for me. There's lots of different tools and lots of different doorways in all of these software programs. So, you know, if you're more comfortable with one tool over another, use the one you're comfortable with. You know, it might take you a few more steps, but if you feel more comfortable, that's fine. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take this off now because I have these other colors. But if you want to use, you know, again, a screenshot, you can do that. Just remember that you're going to end up needing them as swatches sooner or later. The other thing that I always do with swatches too is I take off, I make sure that my boxes don't have strokes on them. That's one of the kind of irritating things to me with InDesign is that it has this default stroke on every shape that I ever make. And that always just kind of looks a little bit tacky, I think. And so I take those strokes off. And also that way, if I ever use the eyedropper, it doesn't automatically like copy that stroke onto a shape that I'm using. And then I'm going to rearrange these a little bit because I kind of want to have the greens together and the blue by itself, because these are kind of two shades of the same color, two shades of the same color. That makes it so that I can feel like I can use them a little bit better. So what happened to my alignment? Realign them now so they're all nice and neat again. Okay, so now we have a color palette and that's basically all that was required, right? Let's see. Yep, I showed my types of graphs already in my sketch. And then the ProQuest reference, and I'm not going to walk through that. The assignment has very specific search instructions for you, so you should be able to find an article in there, read through it a little bit, you know, digest that information, and then just put the reference right there. But all you would have to do is, you know, type it on here, you know, ProQuest, and then there's your link. Okay, so this, if you want to, you know, continue further and you want to decide some fonts, you could do that as well. So I already picked a font here for my text here, but maybe that's not the font that I'm going to use for, you know, my headline and, you know, some of my other more illustrative text that I'm going to use. So if you want to start planning a font, you can do that as well. So let's take a look at Typekit, like I mentioned, that you can use for that. So I'm going to put headline. I'm going to spell it right too. Headline, and then I'm going to put subheadings. And I'll take that. I don't want that in all caps. So that I'm going to have to undo that. Oh, I thought I did. Come on. How come it? Oh, it's because I have it clicked over here. Hello. And then text. Okay, so now I just have these here. Now I'm going to find some fonts that I think I might like a little bit better. Let's zoom in on it. So let's see here. Finding your type kit. Let's get out our types and tables. So let's get out your character panel. And I think this is where the link is. Let's see. No, where is that link? I've lost it. Let's see. Do you guys remember? Is it in here? Yes, okay. So the little drop-down menu up here at the top, it says Add Fonts from Typekit. So just click that one. I mean, of course, you can go in there and you can see all of these that say sample right here. So there's lots of fonts to choose from, but these are pretty predictable. Like just about everybody has these fonts. And so sometimes you want to have something that is a little bit more, has a little bit more design style to it. So if you go to Typekit, it's going to open up another website, just like Adobe Cooler does. And here you can choose from a lot of fonts, and what's cool about it is that you can see the text that you're planning on writing, and you can kind of make some sub-selections here too. So let's say I want to see, I'm going to put internet growth. Okay, I know that that's going to be part of my headline. So I kind of want to see what these, what this font looks like as I'm typing out this, and I'm going to do it in caps. So I'm actually going to look at that. If I'm going to look at a sample, I might as well do it in a correct way, right? I accidentally clicked on something. Sorry. We have to go back. Sorry again here. Again, you don't have to have your title in all caps or anything. I might even change my mind when I do in my other graphic, but for now, that's the plan. So what you can do over here is you can pick the different classifications. So if you want to have a sans serif, serif, slab serif, a script one, handwritten one, whatever, right? Let me take a look at the slab serif ones. Can you see? It changes, gives me all kinds of options right here. It has some recommendations. So am I going to use it for paragraph or am I going to use it for headings? They will kind of narrow down the options for you. I'm going to use this for headings. So I'll click that. I can choose other properties like the weight of it, the width of it, X height, you know, what the numbers in the font looks like. That's probably going to be important to me because I'm going to be, you know, having some percentages and numbers and stuff like that in there. So yeah, so right now I can, you know, do medium and wide, for example, and then it makes some different selections for me. Kind of fun, huh? Cool. Saves you a lot of time, except for, you know, instead of just scrolling through a bunch of fonts and trying to figure out how each one of them look, right? Plus, it has some options on here that isn't all of those regular, you know, ones. So let's say that I want to use, let's say I want to use this really thick one right here. I'll click on it. And it will show me, they actually has a lot of different styles of this font in here. You can see there's some that are stroked. And then there is, you know, the regular, not all caps versions. So this one has a ton of different options. And so you just click sync to any of them that you want to use. And so let's say I want to use this this Sutro shaded fill. You have to kind of remember what they're called though, so that when you go into InDesign and you go back here and you cover it, you can start Sutro. Come on, it should be there. Am I spelling it right? Sutro shaded fill should be in there. I've synced it. Watch it not work because of you know, the connection deal here. Sutro. Okay, it looks like it's not. It's probably because of that cloud sync again. So unfortunately, there's really no way around that when it comes to Typekit. So I'm SOL on this for this time until that syncing thing is working again. Yep, you could use DeFont. If you want to find some free fonts on DeFont, you could use that too and download some of those. That's fine as well. Just think again about, you know, the legibility of the font. In, you know, you want to be able to have your audience read it. When it's a headline, you can probably be a little bit more adventurous than when you're working with text and so forth. Okay. All right. So I would have to, you know, either wait till this can sync or I can pick something else. But if you want to start picking your fonts, making those selections, you can. All right. Okay. Then that's pretty much it. All right, let's see. Casey's saying, I'm still not sure what info to use, and do we use all the countries? So again, that's kind of up to you, you know. If you go back to the website here, I noticed, you know, in Tuesday's lecture that you could click each one of these, and if you want to go in and just do a statistic only on Asia, you could do that, just maybe only on Asia and compare it to the world. If you click each one of these countries, you'll also get Facebook statistics down here. So if you want to include that, you could do that. But, you know, then it has every single country in Asia, quite a few. So it might be pretty complicated. So don't overcomplicate it for yourself. Just kind of look at it and decide, what do you think, you know, when you read through this and when we talked through this, what did you think was interesting? You know, if you thought it was really interesting that there had been about the same growth in the Middle East and Latin America, then kind of focus on that and let that be your story. But you know, you can show all the world regions. You can compare just a few if you'd like. You can compare countries within a region if you would rather do that. So I decided to focus on the growth, but the information that you have is internet usage statistics. So If you want to talk, if you don't really want to talk about the growth, if you just want to show, again, where, you know, most of the internet users are, that they're in Asia, you can focus on that, but you need to have the relative information in the background too, to show that actually, because half of the population are Asian, there is really only 44% of the Asians that are using the internet, because you don't want your information to be skewed so that somebody gets the wrong information. If you only show this and you say 50% of the world internet users are in Asia, that can be a little bit misleading, because if people don't know that half of the population live in Asia, they're going to think that, you know, more Asians than Americans have used the internet. You see what I mean? But that's not exactly true. So that is what analyzing the information means. You have to kind of compare different data and decide what you're going to show. Does that open your eyes a little bit to sometimes when we hear statistics, that if they're not telling some of the background stuff, we might get a different idea, right? So the power of infographics, you can really sway somebody's mind. You can really kind of portray information in a way that, you know, highlighting things you want them to know. But ethically, we want it to be the whole picture, right? So. Okay, so yep, this project is using this information. That's the one thing, that you have to use the information from this website. We're going to limit it to that so that you don't have to try to find the information. We've already found the information for you. Okay, is that clear to you now then, Brittany? Okay, good. Okay, so then here's my InDesign thing. I'll call that good, even though I couldn't find the fonts that I wanted. Maybe I'll just make this a little bit bigger and make it bold, just to do something about it. And maybe I'll make the subheadings bold as well, or semi-bold or something, okay? So now I want to make sure, let's take a look at my little instructions again. Make sure that I keep the InDesign file, and I'm going to save it as a PDF. Okay, so I want to save this file. And why do you think I want to save this file? Yeah, exactly. I might need to use it again. So I'm going to make sure I stick it in my right folder here for week 1. And I want to save the InDesign one because I've got some things in here that I don't want to have to find again. Like I have these swatches. I can just, you know, transfer those over to my design. I have this graphic. It's all in one place now. And that's kind of part of this whole plan, is to have everything together in one place. And then I'm going to save this as a PDF. Oh, I'm in InDesign, so I have to export. Sorry. In Illustrator, you can just do save as. But in InDesign, you have to export. And I'm going to make sure that now that I export it, I actually name it the name that it's supposed to have in the instructions here. So let me go to my assignment. And this is a quick way to make sure you get it right, is just copy it from the assignment, stick it up here, and then of course I'm going to put my own name in there. We don't want to have 60 first and last name people. And we're going to do a PDF. And in my PDF settings, make sure that I have both pages. And I always click this one. Always click the View PDF after exporting, because sometimes things show up in there that I hadn't planned on. And I always want to make sure that it's looking right. I don't want to have any marks and bleeds on it, so I might just check that as well. I'll export that. And here we go. All right, so this one, see, this one is showing the pages one by one. I kind of wanted to show them as a spread. So there was something I was missing. And so that's why I do this. I'm going to go back and I'm going to resave it, re-export it.
Don't you, instead of checking pages, you check spreads instead?
Exactly, that's what I didn't do. So I'm going to just resave this, replace the old one, and I need to check spreads right here. Okay, now I'm going to export it and see if it's better. Oh, I have to, that's something that I actually learned last mod. You have to close that PDF or it doesn't save a new one. So I had that PDF open already, so I had to close that. Go through it again, double check I have my spreads now. All right, there we go. Looks like I planned, right? And I've got nice even margins all the way around because I kept that in mind when I put things in here, kind of line things up, neat and organized. You can title these different things if you want to. That could help you keep check and make sure that you have everything in there, but it's not necessary. All right, so that's my assignment. That's what I will submit for week 1. And let's take a look at the rubric here, because that's always a good way to check and make sure everything's in there. You can see that, correct name and file format, that's a given. Follows assignment specifications, quality work, and attention to detail. If you want to know a little more detail on that, excuse me, click the longer description and it will have in bullet points. Synopsis, sketch or outline, plan for your hierarchy. Again, that can be part of your sketch or it can be written out in words, however you want to do it. Type of graphs, again, can be part of your sketch or written out. Color palette, and your citation. So that's going to be, a total of 60 points, depending on how you accomplish that. And then this one here, the design quality, observing design principles and creative thinking, will be graded on if the presentation is clear and easy to understand, if it's aesthetically presented, observing the principles of design.
Okay, so we need to do an actual sketch.
You don't have to. You can, if you want, if you don't want to do a hand-drawn sketch, you can sketch it out by just putting shapes in InDesign. Just in the little box, you can do a circle and a square, that kind of stuff, kind of decide where you're going to plan things. Just do it in, a little part of the page or on a whole other page if you'd like to. Or you can, write it out with words as well. But I think that is really, that's really complicated. It's not a very visual way to plan things, but you could.
It's easier to understand visual than it is text.
Yes, it is. But, you can also, parts of these things you could write out in text if you wanted to. Like you could write, for example, I'm going to use a pie graph and some bar graphs to illustrate the growth and whatever it is you decide to do.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so if I'm getting this right, like say we can use a pie graph for the population for each of them, and then we can use like a bar graph or a line graph for like the growth, and then we can use another bar or line graph to show the internet usage of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So just kind of plan out and think about, how is this information best portrayed, growth, for example, doesn't work that well in a pie graph because you can't really show, you don't see like compare, I think a growth shows better like in a line graph or a bar graph than it does in a pie graph. A pie graph works best for percentages of a whole. for example, right?
Okay, I don't know if it's just because I came in late. When we do the graphs, are we doing it over a certain period of time, or are we doing it kind of all together?
I'm not sure what you mean by a certain period of time.
I think he's asking about, like, you know, from like 2016 to this year. I think
Yeah,
that's what
you
he's talking
only
about.
have the data here to work with. So, you know, this growth right here is from 2000 to 2017. So if you want to do the mathematical calculations of what the growth was in 2000, when it has increased by 1,523.9%, you'd have to do some mathematical calculations to show that. I'm not requiring to do that. This is not a math class by any means, especially not with mean charge. And so, you know, just use the data that you have in here.
Okay.
And, you know,
If you really think about it, I think it'll just give you extra work.
yes, you know, that's just extra work. So you don't have to do that. And if you click into some of these, you might be able to dig in and get deeper and get some other previous information and stuff like that. But again, don't complicate it for yourself. Just pick out some interesting information that you think you found from looking at this data, and let's make a visual of that next week. This week, just plan it. Okay, is everybody feeling good about this now? This is a good time to ask a question if you have one.
I'll have to go through the playback. I came in halfway through.
Okay, all right. So hopefully if you watch the whole thing, you still have questions, let me know. I'll try to explain it, but this is really the best way I know how to explain it, is what I've done here in class. So, all right. It's helped Brittany get some ideas. Good. Do the rest of you have ideas? The ones of you that haven't started yet, is it kind of getting you thinking? Okay. Ravens is maybe. Okay. If you had, you know, any issues with your submissions and you've already turned them in, then that's fine too. Just explain things to me. You know, if you turn things in and you had problems or issues, you know, leave me a comment and explain to me what's going on, and then that helps me out. Okay. All right. So where are we at now? So I feel like we're kind of, everybody feel good about doing the assignment?
I'm all good to go here.
Yeah, if you want to just do the Asia Internet use and just focus on that, go ahead. But it would probably be more interesting information if you compared it to some of the rest of the world just a little bit. But you could focus on Asia if you want to. Okay, sounds good. All right, we're going to take just a quick little break here. I'm going to give my voice a little break, and then when we come back, we will talk about the assessment. Does that sound okay?
How long would you say the break is going to be? Because
maybe 3-4 minutes. Do you guys need a longer one?
yeah, I'm good. I was just wondering.
Okay, yeah, no, just a few more minutes. I'm just gonna get a drink of water and refill my glass and get my other files up, okay? All right, sounds good.